And in the white corner we have Amro El Jawich. And in the black corner we have none other than Wei Yi. So as the title of this video shows, something amazing really happened in 2016. Wei Yi was held to a draw by the Lebanese champion, the current Lebanese champion, Amro El Jawich. It was really a sensational result because that year Wei Yi just won the best game of the year award. I mean, well, it was. I guess it's not technically a real award, but his game versus Brunson was really out of this world, and everyone was praising it. So the fact that a 2200 FM could draw him was sensational. And actually, there is a funny story which I'll tell you at the end of the video. And so I hope you can stick around for that. So I won't take too long here. I'm just going to go through this game, and let's see how Wei Yi was held to a draw. Okay, so e4, c5, okay, normal territory for now, the Sicilian defense. Knight c3, okay, so Amr goes for the closed Sicilian. Now, the closed Sicilian is generally a good idea at let's say master level, because you're really not going to these complex theoretical lines, and Wei Yi is an expert on the Sicilian with both colors, so it's a good idea to go for these quieter setups against him. So knight c3 and knight c6. Already commenting the knight to c6. I'm not really sure I like this transpositional option. I prefer going with the pawn here, e6 or d6 or even a6. Knight c6 I feel is, I mean, too committal is not the right word, but it's like a bit committal, and also a bit like revealing your cards at the start of the game and limiting your options. So yeah, it's a bit too committal. So bishop b5. Now this is known. This opening really doesn't have a name here. Bishop b5. Now if we go here and check knight f3, knight c6, and now bishop b5. This is the Rossolimo attack. But in the closed Sicilian here, it's a kind of different idea. Well, here the idea is just to as in the Rossolimo also, just to capture the pawn, capture the knight, and saddle black with doubled pawns. And then the battle between the doubled pawns and the lack of the bishop pair will be put to the test. And usually white scores very well in these battles. And I, as black, as someone who plays these black structures, I hate doubling my pawns like this. Yes, I gain the bishop pair, which I love playing against. I really love playing with the bishop pair and playing against someone who doesn't have the bishop pair. Okay, I guess those go hand in hand, but in these positions, I find that even though white lacks the bishop pair, his ability to attack these points and your very ineffective light squared bishop, which will be hemmed in by your own pawns due to the resulting structure, it will be very difficult to get an edge out of these positions. So I don't like this at all, and generally nowadays I don't even play this, I don't allow white to double my pawns. And in fact, this is the best way to play for an advantage. The biggest problem Wei Yi had in this game was that there was just nothing. He could do nothing better than what he did. And Amr was up to the task to hold him to a draw, because he saw all the tactics, he saw all the finesses, and there was nothing. The best move here, in my opinion, to play for an advantage is knight d4. And this was played here by Carlsen versus Luka Lenic. Luka Lenic was playing as black, and he didn't want a draw from Carlsen. He wanted to win. So he played knight d4. And we'll take a look at this game briefly, and we'll switch it. Okay, yeah, we'll switch it to Luka Lenic's side. So he played knight d4 here, offering up the bishop pair. But really it shouldn't be taken, because then white has two knights developed and you have none. But maybe it's possible to take. So he went for a6, and here the bishop doesn't retreat to e2, because then maybe black would take, then the knights would be passive, not active as they would be here. And bishop d3, knight c6, and now bishop e2. So probably avoiding bishop knight b4s and just developing with the pawns. Now white lost quite a bit of time, but at the same time black doesn't have many pieces developed. White has 3, black has 1. So as you can see by the evaluation here, white still has some degree of an advantage. d5 going for this kind of setup where the d5 square is eternally weak, and Carlsen exploits that with bishop g5. But the engine doesn't really like it here, because even though you do get this control over d5, black gets a lot of counterplay on the queen's side, on the king's side, and we'll see how this happened in this game. So as you can see by these maneuvers, white completely controls d5, but this isn't enough. Here black gets rid of the control over d5 of one knight, and with one knight remaining, it's just not enough. So as you can see here, these two knights, there are two knights here, but there are two also defenders of the d5 square. So it's not enough to get an edge, because the knights will just get traded. And here, after queen g5 and now h5, black starts attacking white, and with white's doubled pawns, even though he has an open f-file, this bishop does a good job of defending all squares, so black has a decent edge here. And here Carlsen makes a mistake. He should have captured here, getting rid of the doubled pawns first of all, and opening up some files. What he did with d4 wasn't as good, because now after the captures, with d4 he has less control over this square, over the e4 square. So and this meant that the bishop could come to d5, and that was a tough game from here. He just lost an exchange, and Luka Lenic converted well. So we'll take a look at this very quickly. Luka Lenic repeats moves here just to gain time on the clock, but of course he doesn't want a draw. We can see that he doesn't want a draw from his opening choice. He goes for knight d4. The conversion wasn't all that easy, but Luka Lenic is a 2600 GM, and he gets the job done here. Okay, so let's close out of that game. So in this position, knight d4 was better, but Wei Yi goes for g6, and you can see here in the statistics that g6 scores a very huge percentage for white, almost the second largest, tied for second with d6. And this isn't the way to go. Look at knight d4 in comparison, and black scores quite a bit of wins. Knight a5 somehow scores a lot of wins. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's such a weird move. It's not without any ideas though. You want to go a6, then go back to c6. So knight a5 is also possible. So you can see that the two highest scoring moves are knight d4 and knight a5, and that's no wonder, you know. It's no wonder that that's the case, because you don't want to play this setup, even though the computer will say equal, but that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. It's very easy for a human to play for an edge as white, or an equal game, as has happened here. So Wei Yi, you made a bad decision. Okay, so g6, and now this capture happened, and there are also lines you can take with the d pawn also. It's possible, but it's still the same thing. I mean, here you have a better bishop, but also your structure on the queen side is very terrible. It's quite terrible. And here, your bishop, I mean, sort of gets out if you play d5 and stuff like that. But at the same time, your structure here is also very weak. So I just don't like playing with the structure, and the statistics prove my point quite clearly. So now f4, this is almost necessary. You need to control the e5 square, especially with the Sorry for that. Especially with the bishop coming here, you need to control the e5 square, so you need to go f4. If you go knight f3, you just have one piece that can control e5. But with f4 and knight f3, you have two. So just like in the queen's gambit, like here, d4, d5, you go c4 first, not knight c3, because knight c3 you only have one piece attacking d4, d5. But here, if you go c4 and you go z6 and you go knight c3, now you have two pieces, the knight and the pawn. It's the same concept in this opening. You want the pawn to be behind, to be ahead of your knight, in front of your knight. So okay, this happened, knight f3. d5 is already a very rare move. And you can see that I turned on the engine earlier to see. Yeah, and here d5 is a very rare move, and for good reason. d3 was, I guess, a slight inaccuracy. The best move here probably is e5. You need to close down this, you blunt this bishop, you gain space, and you also have these ideas now that aren't available when d3 is there. Now d3, okay, it's a good idea keeping the tension, but in this case, it's one of the few cases where keeping the tension isn't actually the best course of action. So, because, as I said, the e5 move has so many advantages and almost no disadvantages. Well, the only disadvantage is that you overextend and of course relieve the tension. But at the same time, d3, now you can't really go here because black can just capture here, and after the capture here, probably trade queens, and it's way too equalish. And especially now in this specific case, you're not castled, so you have to take with the king if you go knight a4. And I mean, it's not really trying to play for an edge. But anyway, a draw against Wei Yi is good, no? It's Wei Yi who should have been pushing, but he didn't do that because he played g6, 3g6. Okay, so castles. Again here e5 should or could have been played. But castles, okay, it's fine. Again e5 here. Now queen e1. This is a standard move in the Grand Prix attack. And this is like a hybrid between the Grand Prix and the Rossolimo with bishop b5 and bishop takes c6. The idea here is to maneuver the queen to h4, come with the knight here. Sorry. Okay, so you go here, you maneuver the queen to h4, you go f5, you play bishop h6, you play knight h5, knight g5, you take this and you take this, and he takes it back, and then you mate him on h5. That's on h7. That's the plan. So let me do some dud moves just so you can see the plan. You go here. Okay, this is just a dummy line just to show the point. And of course the knight must move, so let's say you take here. And okay, of course there's a fork here, but let's say the knight moves. Oh wait. Okay, let's say the knight moves now. And here the point is you mate on h7. That's the idea. So that's why he played queen e1. And now Wei Yi captures, and it's very important to capture with the knight here. Because if you capture with the pawn, you allow the bishop to come to a6. But with the knight here, the bishop coming to a6 is ineffectual. It doesn't attack a rook. Here, bishop a6 attacks the rook, so you have to move out of the way. There's no other option. You can't block the diagonal with any piece. Also, you're missing a light square bishop. And now knight g4. Now you do have rook d2 gaining a tempo on the queen, but there are complications with moves like bishop d4 check, or even bishop takes c3, and this isn't such a hot idea for white. So knight takes e4 is best, and correctly played by Mr. Amr. And now queen b6. Just aiming to defend this pawn. I mean, knight d7 does defend, but it's a little bit too passive. Okay, so queen b6. And queen f2 now, really putting pressure on this pawn. And now bishop e6. Putting some pressure on a2, which will be relevant in this game, and also preparing perhaps c4. Now, queen c5 is a way to get a draw. And this is great against Wei Yi. But to play for an advantage, you can play knight takes f6 check. There's also knight e g5. which is also a good idea to play for an advantage. Aiming again for these kinds of ideas, but you know, bishop e3 first, just so you don't get checked. And stuff like that. Knight f6 is also possible, and after bishop takes, you have bishop e3 with some complications. Knight e5 is a way to basically get a draw, because after c4, here you take the pawn, takes, and here black removes the defender of the c4 point. And after this, you can also go to d1, but after bishop e6, there are ideas with this bishop coming here, and this is too dry. Rook e1 tries to play for an edge, so you don't want to trade rooks on the open file. You put your rook on a closed file. But still, with these opposite colored bishops, it's not going to amount to much. But so knight e5 is a drawing method basically. But bishop e3 with complications is a good try to play for an advantage. Black will probably take on b2. Now taking with the bishop is bad on account of rook a b1. And now the threat is bishop takes c5, which would come with tempo. And after the queen moves, bishop a3, pinning the bishop and winning it. Because if the bishop takes here, the rook will just capture the queen. So let's say, for example, black plays a5, you take, and bishop a3, and now you win this bishop because it's pinned to the queen. Now here, of course, this bishop takes a2, but here you just capture on c5 and move the rook. And even though in this position you're down a pawn, well, for now at least, your really strong pieces will prove to be beneficial. As you can see here, the engine gives a 1 point advantage for white. So you have knight e5 ideas, you have queen h4 ideas. These pieces are really not doing much on the queen side, while if you look at all these pieces, all 5 of them are participating in the attack against the black king. And this is a distant defender of the black king, and this is, I mean, it's not really a defender of the black king, because it's only defending f7. So you can say that black has like almost 1, since this would be 0.5 and this would be 0.5. Almost 1 defender of the position, and white has 4.5, this is the 0.5 pieces in the attack. So rough approximations, but you get the idea. So white has a huge attack here. So after bishop e3, black must take with the queen. And now after bishop takes, and let's say the rook moves, avoiding the pin, and white goes for rook fb1. Now, of course, the queen could move to c3, that's another possibility, but let's say black decides to take here. Now this position is very imbalanced, but probably white should be slightly better. He should be pushing for an edge. But in any case, these are wild complications, so it's understandable that Amr went for queen takes c5, aiming for a draw. And these complications are forced. So after queen c5, black doesn't really want to do this, because now this knight is very strong on c5, and it attacks its bishop, threatening to double the pawns. So that wasn't the best. So knight takes e4 basically wins a pawn, because now a2 is under pressure, because after queen b6 and a takes b6, the a file got opened up. But this is exactly the pressure that white seeks, because now this position will basically transpose into an opposite colored bishop's endgame, which will be drawn. Now rook takes a2 was possible, but here it's just another version of the game. And here white is attacking c6. So let's say black defends it, and here white really has no problems at all, and should go on to draw this, or even win. Probably not, but you know. Bishop takes a2, and now knight e5. This is a critical move, attacking c6 and offering the exchange of the knight for the bishop. And when that exchange happens, we get our desired draw, because what's remaining is the opposite colored bishops, with some rooks granted, but the rooks aren't enough to sway this game away from a draw, so it'll end up being drawn. Wei Yi tries with c5, tries not to immediately capture the knight. But I mean, with the b3 now, the black bishop isn't doing anything, and this bishop is blocked by this knight. So b3 is a really strong move. It also kills this rook because the rook now can't move because the bishop would be captured. So it's a move, it's a little pawn move that basically kills two pieces. So a great idea. c4 though tries to escape it. Tries to take with c4, and after takes on b3, sorry, and after takes on b3, the bishop can capture and you win a pawn. And of course, white can't take with the knight for winning a free pawn because this bishop is hanging. Thanks to this rook is hanging, sorry, thanks to this bishop. So white has to take like this. And now, if we take with the bishop, we have this tactic. So you take on a8, and let's say if black captures here, you just take here, and you're doing fine. This is another equal endgame. And let's say you take here, now you can take with check, and after takes here, and now white is winning. So it was important for black to trade this knight, but after this trade, now it's the equal endgame we desire, and even a set of rooks get traded, so it's even easier to draw this. And Amr does a good job of drawing this. And in fact, here with g4 and h3, there are some mating threats in this position. So Wei Yi had to play rook c7, and after bishop f6, rook c8 is forced. Let's say black plays this. Now rook h8 is extremely strong because you're threatening check, and then so the threat here is check, moves, and mate. So that means that in this position, basically this sacrifice has to be played, and so that you get an escape square on g4, because now h3 isn't controlling g4. So let's say now this happens. Now at least you can escape here, but this is completely lost since you're down a bishop. So there are some threats in this position actually. So rook c8 is forced, and if rook c8 is forced, it means we go into a pure opposite card bishop endgame, and this is just completely drawn. I mean, I think an 1800 player could draw this against Wei Yi. There really is nothing to play for here. Just 4 pawns versus 4 pawns. I mean, even if black manages to win 2 pawns, let's say, it's still drawn. So we'll take a look at this phase of the game quite quickly. And really nothing happened here for many moves. Now Wei Yi played on, you know, because it was a team event, and drawing a 2200 isn't fun after you've won the game of the year. But yeah, that's exactly what happened. And the funny story I have for you is that the next day, Amr comes up to Wei Yi and tells him, maybe this game should be the game of the year. Maybe they were mistaken. That was really funny. So yeah, because this should be a game of a lifetime for, you know, an up and coming player drawing Wei Yi when he won the game of the year. That's amazing. So we can take a look also at the game study to see the engine evals. Okay, I have the study in the link description. So here you can see the engine evals. White had some ways to push for an advantage early on, as we said, with e5. But he chose a different route, and here it's just equal. It gives some advantage in the bishop endgame, but of course this is fluff. If you follow the principal variation of the engine, it's just a clear draw. So of course not. Of course not like this. So okay, that was what happened. And points of improvement. Let's see how we can improve. First of all, for black, the clear improvement. I think there's just one point of improvement for black, and then it's dead. The point of improvement is not to play g6. That's my opinion on this position. And also a second point would be not to play d5, to play c4 here. c4 has been tried, with unfortunately not good results, but it's a nice idea because it aims to prevent d4, because now you take and you've gotten rid of your doubled pawns, so it's a very very clever idea. So c4, it basically aims, so if you go like d4 or d3, let's say d4, you take here, and now you no longer have doubled pawns as black, so you have only the bishop pair and no double pawns, and that's great. So maybe black has a slight edge here. And after c4 you really can't like try to win this pawn, because there's always bishop a6 and later d5, and if d5 is played, you know, it's quite good for black, so, because he's opening up the center, and if like if where is it? Okay, so c4 here. Like, yeah, let's say this, and bishop a6, and now, I don't know, let's say white maneuvers trying to win. Already here probably there is, no, c3 doesn't work. Like d5 here, and let's say takes, and now you have a good structure as black. Well, it's not so great, but, well, I guess it is. No, it's a good structure. So c4 also was a second point of improvement for black. And here I really can't give money pointers. Now for white, e5, definitely. e5 here, e5 now, and e5 now. 3 times e5 was, I guess I can say, missed. And here, not taking on c5, that's the second point of improvement. And then, now here, there's not much to improve upon. So yeah, 2 for white, 2 for black. It's just that the course of this game was very, let's say, dry. So that was it for this video. I hope it really showcased how, like, you know, different levels of master chess aren't that far off. So even Wei Yi, if he chooses a bad line, he can get into quite some trouble and be fighting for his life for a draw. So yeah, I hope you got something out of this. Cheers, guys.